Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Friday, April 18th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. If you're listening to us on the internet through live.needle.com/mindshiftersradio, we're glad you're here and appreciate your spending time with us. However, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you can't do it through that unless you go to the App Store and download the Needle app. The Needle app is listed as NEDL AI Tuner for Live Radio. And if you download that app, open it, log in, answer a few questions, it will give you the opportunity to type a comment in the app and or talk to us directly by tapping the phone icon. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does that, either live through a comment or talks to us live on the phone or sends an email, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just boatloads easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. We had a number of people typing in comments to the app yesterday, and that basically filled our time, responding to questions and comments. And so hopefully that was useful. We didn't get back to any of the reading of either of the two books we're going through right now. One of them is The Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg, and the other one I've been reading bits and pieces of is How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Feldman Barrett. And I find it interesting and reassuring at different times that the hard neuroscience these days is validating what the deep spiritual teachings have been telling us for years, and that is that we have the capacity to choose the focus of our conscious awareness in each moment, and that is literally what creates our experience of life. It creates our emotions, it creates our interpretations and meaning and value of everything that we experience. And I've had a couple examples recently of people who, whether they realize it or not, have had the lived experience of validating that it's not the outside circumstance that triggers this or that in me. It's the interpretation that I choose and place on that event which actually creates my experience of life. I've never been triggered to upset by anyone or anything. I have chosen, or I've been trained into a certain meaning for that, or for how I should respond when certain stimuli hit my senses. And it's fascinating that people still want to talk about getting triggered, and people still have a belief that the outside events are causing their upset. And it's completely understandable, because if that's what I've been taught, that's what I tend to believe. And as we know, my beliefs powerfully affect my experience of life. This is why people like Bruce Lipton say things like, we should, when we talk about the placebo effect, we're better off giving it a different name, giving it something with more reverence. Perhaps we could get better results in our life if we talk about the belief effect rather than the placebo effect, because the fact of the matter is our beliefs are so powerful that they are the construction device for our experience in life. And if I believe that a medication I'm being given by a doctor is going to help me, it is dramatically more likely to result in a relief of symptoms than if I don't really believe in it. Just like if I believe that prayer is going to be beneficial, it's dramatically more likely that it will be beneficial in my life. And we've come to call that the placebo effect, the idea that there's a positive change that happens even though there hasn't been a therapeutic substance ingested. And there's also the nocebo effect, which means people can have negative effects even though there's been nothing toxic given. And if you want to explore that more, you can look into different books. The one that I have discussed here on the air before is Suggestible You. And there's just many well-documented cases where people have experienced positive benefit from things that have no therapeutic value in terms of what our medical science knows. And people have experienced many negative side effects even though they haven't been given a medication or any kind of a toxic substance. And that would be an example of the nocebo effect, the negative placebo effect. So if you believe that there's nothing that can help you, chances are you'll create a life experience that demonstrates to you that nothing can help you. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier about Diederik Wolsak and the powerful results he gets from his worksheet because he learned to challenge the meaning he has given past experiences in his life, that he had somehow experienced them as traumatic, and then he had ongoing negative effects from those life experiences. And he was aware that, these events did happen, and they were unpleasant, if not, painful or full-on abusive. And yet, years later, as he's experiencing negative impact from that, he realized the negative impact he was experiencing is coming from what he made those original events mean in his life, what he made them mean about himself, that he's a bad person, or that he's unlovable, or he's unworthy, or he doesn't deserve to be happy, etc. And as he uses his worksheet process, which to my eyes and ears is very similar to Dr. Michael Ryce's Reality Management Worksheet process, but as he uses that worksheet process and he calls into question those old beliefs and sees them from his adult perspective, he realizes, you know what, that's not really the truth. And as he sees it fully, it loses its power to create upset in his life. Well, that's exactly the kind of thing we're encouraging people to do with the Reality Management Worksheet. We map out what my brain is doing, what my thoughts are doing, and how my brain is telling me that, you know what, this whole situation is bad or wrong and shouldn't be happening, and it's causing my upset. And then I cancel all of that and ask to be shown a different way to look at the same situation. And because our life experience is created inside of us, these tools have the potential to be quite useful. If in fact my life situation was being created by the external events and people around me, then these tools would have no way to be of value. The only thing that could help me if my negative emotional states were being created by the events outside of me, the only thing that could help me have a different emotion is to change the external situation. So there you have it. We have plenty of time for comments and questions. It's a Friday. We had our support group last night. We had a brand new person that never before been there. And we have an ongoing offer. We try to remember to invite people every Tuesday and Thursday, or almost every Tuesday and Thursday, from 6:30 to 9 Central Time, because it's absolutely free and it's a powerful dynamic of group support for those who want to learn to use these tools differently and or have emotional, energetic support for applying them directly into their lives. And we encourage you to join us or pass that information along to somebody you think might benefit. In lieu of anybody typing in a comment or raising a hand or asking to talk directly, which we strongly encourage, I will return to reading with commentary the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. And we had read 4 of the 5 essays related to how negative emotions can be used as guideposts. And the 5th essay is titled The Joy of the Truth. And Christian writes, the truth feels wonderful. When we align with the greater truth, we feel great. Our true nature is the full bliss of being. And so that bliss shines forth when we're not separating ourselves from it by being associated with thoughts, beliefs, or self-perceptions that do not align with its loving, connected, free, and creative nature. So our true nature, another way to say this is, he's saying our true nature is loving, connected, free, and creative. And when we focus on or believe negative thoughts, beliefs, or self-perceptions, we lose the experience of ourselves as being loving, connected, free, and creative. When we really know We are loved. We are this energy of creation expressing in form. We are this energy that they call love. When we know that, we feel great. When we really know we're connected, we feel great. When we really know we are free, we feel great. When we really know and feel the truth that we are creative and powerful, we feel great. We feel great joy, not just because these are nice ideas, but because vibrationally within consciousness space, they are a move closer to the truth of who we really are. And yes, they are just words that we're throwing at, like fingers pointing at the moon. They are not the word is not the thing. And yet, the meanings we have for these words help us move toward the experience. He writes, when you see the truth, you know it. When you feel the truth, it feels right. If an idea doesn't feel right, it either isn't the truth or it simply conflicts with your current beliefs, and perhaps both. He writes, Spirit rejoices in the truth. Human personality struggles with the illusion of separation because separation is not native to who the experiencer of the human personality really is. Because in truth, there is no separation. So we struggle with this idea of separation because it's not the truth of who we are. He writes, in what is actually true, there's absolutely nothing to fear ever. If any given moment we are not feeling that, it means we are associating with something that is not the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is more wonderful than anything that can be said with words. And then he suggests that we learn to follow our deepest joy and know it fully, know the deep truth of ourselves. There are many people who are in the middle of a physical experience that is painful. It is fundamentally in conflict with what they think should be happening, and they are experiencing all kinds of tightness and tension and discomfort, and they would argue against these essays. And I think the authors of these essays would say that the only reason they're arguing against it or experiencing something different is because they've inadvertently or they've accidentally, they've been conditioned into a belief that's not accurate. And when I pour my mind energy into something that's different than the truth of my being, I feel the discordant resonance. So we have other categories. That's the 5 essays grouped together under the heading Negative Emotions as Guideposts. The heading before that is called Life as Feedback. The one before that is Challenge as a Gift. We also have categories like Answer is not in intellect, and categories like Truth beyond knowledge. So let's take a look at, since no one's piping up here and making a suggestion, let's take a look at the essays grouped together as Your Answer is Not in the Intellect. The first essay that he points out here is titled, Love is More Important Than Knowledge. And Christian writes, one of the main jobs of the ego is to try to prove one's worth to oneself. Much of my own life I justified my worth to myself, at least in part, by establishing intellectual capability. I learned facts and skills. I grew my knowledge of various subjects, and I learned a foreign language. I earned a near perfect grade point average in college. I worked hard to excel in my career and become the best I could be at various activities. Eventually, I had a long list of intellectual accomplishments to present to myself to prove my worth to myself. It worked for a while. Eventually, I made a profound personal discovery. In what you might call the big picture, intellectual accomplishments are largely unimportant. Sure, they have some effect in the physical, and of course there is, in fact, certain spiritual value to my having achieved them. However, in the big picture, from the view of the larger reality, that which supersedes the entire environment and the rule set of this physical reality, in that big picture, my local knowledge and my skills and abilities, they actually mean very little. They're not the big reason why I'm here. I found that what is important is, in fact, intent. What is important is to strive to have the truest quality of intent, genuine, meaning, loving intent, and to have that intent in all the choices that I make. To put crudely but succinctly, quote, love is more important than knowledge, close quotes. Christian writes, you and I are living in a virtual reality. That is, metaphorically, like a giant video game. Our world is an experience constructed within consciousness. When the human body dies, the character's body dies, but we do not. That's okay, because fundamentally, we don't need the skills or the body. What we do take with us, rather than the character's skills, is our own increased ability to actually play the game with higher quality intent. Intent that is more loving and less fearful. We learn how to actually be more loving and less fearful. Every time we play, we tend to get a little better at seeing past the illusions and at making loving choices. Every time we play, we conquer some fear. As we integrate experience, we evolve. Our knowledge does not survive in its current limited form, nor does it need to. However, our wisdom, our genuine love, that survives forever. Love is more important than knowledge. Now, what's the truth of that? I don't know. But it's clearly what some people would argue against. And we just encourage people to test it out for yourself. The next essay in this line of essays titled Answer Not in Intellect. The next essay is titled The Jungle of Confusion. And Christian writes, we live in a jungle of confusion. The veil of amnesia and the illusion of separation cause a profound state of limited information, in which each individual must use limited data to decide what is true. 7 billion people on Earth, and each has his or her own perspective. Most think they generally have the world figured out. And many spend an incredible amount of energy trying to tell each other what to think. We have advertising, religion, social media. All of these things add to the cacophony of individual and group messages to other individuals and groups. As technology proliferates, the volume of the jungle increases. Yet, so very much of it is confusion because none of the messages sent in metaphor or word can successfully communicate the full scope, or what you might call the deeper truth, of what is. Forms, such as words and ideas, cannot fully describe that which is beyond them. Since consciousness awareness is fundamental, the only way that the individual can enter deeper truth is by personal experience. Striving to experience deeper truth is a very individual and unique process that certainly cannot be articulated in words. I would have just ended that sentence right there. Striving to experience deeper truth is very individual, and it's a unique process that certainly cannot be articulated in words. He goes on to say it can't be to you from somebody else. However, one important channel can be identified: the unadulterated experience of the now, the present moment. The unadulterated experience of the now. He writes in parentheses, rather than the consideration of some idea, close parentheses. The more a person is able to be fully present with his or her entire actual experience of the present moment, the better that person will become at being able to see past the deep construct of one's own thoughts, judgments, and beliefs. The more a person is able to see past the thoughts, judgments, and beliefs and simply experience the now moment, the present moment, the closer that person will be to allowing oneself to be touched by glimmers of the ineffable truth which transcends all the metaphors of the world. The sounds of the jungle can be very distracting, but fortunately nothing can thwart your free will ability to choose to focus inward to the silence rather than outward to the noise. And what I'm getting out of this is, the actual experience of relief from my negative emotional states or my trauma states is not something someone can talk me into or talk about. I can't get relief from my negative emotional states by talking about them. I can choose to have a different experience by picking up a tool and actively applying it in my life. Like what happened on Monday morning when I was sitting at the breakfast table and all of a sudden feeling an intense movement of energy in my system that I would label anger. And then deciding, okay, rather than doing my regular morning routine, I'll pull out the app on the phone and do a few worksheets. In that next 45 minutes or so, I demonstrated to myself, this really is an inside job. Nothing changed in the outside world. And my upset level went from an 8 out of 10 down to a 2 or a 0, depending upon how you'd summarize it. The only way for me to benefit from the tools is to actually apply them. The only way for me to understand my true nature is to see through the false nature of all my thoughts about it. Because my true nature can't be thought about. Whatever was happening last night in the support group brought me to think about the little story from Pierre Pradervan where Pierre was asking a Muslim imam, what do the Muslims think God is? How do the Muslims talk about God? And Pierre was a young whippersnapper in his 20s, and he thought he had it all sussed out. He thought he knew exactly what you needed to say to describe God and to know God and all the right words. He had this patter down from the Christian Science groups that he was studying with. And the Imam, the much older, much wiser, much more gentle-hearted Imam, said, well, you know, Pierre, if you took all of the water on the planet, in all of the oceans, rivers, streams, creeks, lakes, etc., and used it as ink, and you took every branch on every tree as a pen, and you wrote for an eternity, you would never exhaust the names for God. Which is just a fancy way of saying the word is not the thing. It doesn't really matter how beautifully you write about chocolate ice cream or chocolate fudge swirl or Rocky Road or whatever your favorite sweet treat is. It cannot convey the experience to a person who's never had it. I can't talk about freedom from my negative emotions in a way that makes any impact on another person even close to the impact of having a shift in their own emotions, whether it comes from doing a worksheet or having some outside experience change. The difficulty is if soon after an outside experience changes, my emotions change, I can trick myself into thinking that the outside event change caused the change in my emotion. And I can keep myself blind to the actual internal process that both created my emotion and either maintained it or released it. So, taking a position, I'm going to mute myself here for a minute and take a drink, and you can think about whether or not you want to raise a hand or type a comment. So we've got some time left. Please remember, even if I'm in the middle of reading something, I welcome comments, questions, or raised hands to talk voice to voice on the app. The next essay in the line of the category of answer not in the intellect is titled Thinking as Distinguished from Being. And Christian writes, when you are thinking, you're lost in the dream of form. When you are being, you just are. No distinctions are necessary, and all possibilities exist when you are just being. When you're thinking, that's a whole process of distinguishing this from that. Good from bad, up from down, right from wrong. Christian writes, the intent to dwell, quote, in the now, close quotes, is often referred to as being present. Being present is like looking at a sunset and fully experiencing its beauty in the moment. You're simply being present with the experience, rather than quantifying or judging the experience with thought. The sunset admirer does not begin to think, quote, this sunset should be more pink, close quotes. Because as soon as he or she does, she's no longer experiencing the sunset, but instead she's experiencing her thoughts about it. She's judging it. The Creator often speaks to us far more clearly in simple presence than in words and judgments. If you slow down the momentum of your thoughts and go far enough into the present moment and allow yourself to completely surrender to it, you will find that rather than nothing being there, everything is there. You will find your awareness exists beyond the boundaries of your body, and that you can experience your being that transcends your entire physical identity and all of its thoughts and judgments. The only things that separate you from the native transcendence are the thoughts and judgments and beliefs that you have decided to cling to and to formalize over a lifetime. This present moment, this very moment right now, the great depths of your own being are available to you. While the momentum of your thoughts and judgments may be great and may seem to keep you far from being fully aware, recognize that at any time you can take a step away from the thoughts and toward awareness of the present moment itself. Who you really are is much bigger than who you may think you are right now. And it is completely okay to explore that. Who you really are is much bigger than who you may think you are right now, and it is completely okay to explore that. There are parts of the Way of Mastery that encourage us to do the same thing, to start practicing awareness of what exists around the edges of whatever it is that our senses are telling us. Practice experiencing what's there right before the thought kicks in. And practice expanding that moment or that instant into a moment and then into a little bit more longer of a moment, rather than rushing off into thought and judgment and comparison. There are some exercises that they suggest. There are some writings that Way of Mastery gives us about the idea of maybe we're driving in a car and we're stopped at a stoplight and we look over and we see a person and we think, oh, there's a person. And we see their gender and the age and we have all these thoughts come up about them. And the Way of Mastery encourages us in that writing to just be there and just ask yourself to be able to see what's going on around the edges of what seems to be your vision or what seems to be your thoughts. And it's the same fundamental knowledge that there's a lot more going on here than can be experienced through the labeling of words and judgments and what he calls form. The next essay in that segment is titled Seeking Truth Beyond the Intellect. And Christian writes, when deciding whether something is true, especially when it comes to philosophical or spiritual topics, we tend to immediately consult the intellect. We have a thought like, quote, does this information jive with my own understanding, close quotes? Or we have a thought like, quote, how does this information fit with my existing beliefs, close quotes? We tend to seek and interpret truth through intellectual understanding or through intellectually held beliefs. And yet the larger spiritual context fully transcends the human intellect. Truth, capital T, truth transcends form. If we wish to seek out what is true, we need to do so with more than just our minds. We need to do so with all of our being. Our being lasts. Our being is actually connected to capital A, all capital T things. But our human intellect is only a narrow, specialized subset of what we truly are. The portion of us focused on processing the seemingly dualistic nature of our physical world. And we are much more than that. We should be careful not to confuse the shadow of man's understanding and metaphors with that which transcends them. Because the physical universe is not fundamental. It will not do to try and understand all of reality with the physical mind. Consciousness is fundamental. So you want to get someplace, explore reality, look to consciousness. If you want to explore reality in its depth, breadth, and richness, do it with your conscious mind, not your intellect. Do it with consciousness. Do it with feeling. Do it with asking to be taught. Do it with looking and questioning, what might there be out around the edges of my physical perception? Just as the Way of Mastery would coach us to do. We have time for a comment or a question. I am reading from the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. I'm reading from the grouping of essays titled Answer Not in the Intellect. The next essay in that list is titled Creation is Vast. And Christian writes, creation is very, very vast. It is so incredibly huge, so unbelievably complex, and so amazingly diverse that it is not possible for anyone to even remotely imagine its scope with the human mind. Our reality alone has over, and here's a number that's 100 trillion galaxies. Some say now that it's at least that number. Each galaxy possessing an average of 100 billion stars. That's more than I can imagine or count star systems. The universe is so big that it takes light more than 13.84 billion years to cross it. Meanwhile, in that time, the universe is expanding even further. And yet all of this scope is our universe only. Our entire universal physical reality is in fact just one of a great many realities. Within that unimaginably vast context, how can any of us humans on Earth expect or believe that we truly grasp the nature of reality? And yet many on Earth subscribe to simple human ideas passed down to them. They enshrine those beliefs and those ideas as beliefs, and they swiftly conclude that they are more or less, quote, have things figured out, close quotes. Most humans believe that they generally have a pretty accurate view of the world at any given time. We commonly claim knowledge where there is actually ignorance. Our basic assumptions about reality fade into the background. They're invisible to us. Even though they color everything we're doing and experiencing in our lives, we're not aware of them anymore. I can't begin to tell you how many people I deal with who are functioning from a conscious mind that says they're doing pretty well, but whenever things go bad and they end up in my office or they're talking about things, it comes back to a common negative belief about themselves, self-loathing, low self-esteem, that they're not aware of all day, every day. As a matter of fact, I even have people argue with me that that couldn't possibly be the fundamental driving force to their failed relationships, because their conscious logical mind is showing them all kinds of other things. And because, they did have this success at work recently, and they did make that rather nice meal the other day, so they don't really, truly hate themselves all the time. But here, in this essay, titled Creation is Vast, Christian is telling us that our basic assumptions about reality, fade into the background. They become invisible to us, but they still color everything that we are doing and experiencing in our lives. I have that experience on a regular basis when I work with people. I have a great difficulty at times convincing people that they would benefit from doing a whole series of worksheets around their self-loathing on a regular basis, a little bit every day, or at least a little bit every week. Work on their low self-esteem or your deeply held belief that there's something damaged, broken, or wrong with you. Because as they live their lives, they say, well, I got a pretty good job, and my kids are doing pretty well. I mean, my car still runs, and I'm taking a vacation to Spain or whatever, and they don't want to understand how powerfully their basic assumptions about reality are driving and coloring everything about their experience of life. Christian goes on here and writes, one of those basic assumptions is that physical matter is what is most real. Many ponderers among us assume that materialism must be sound because we've been able to achieve certain physical accomplishments with our materialistic science. Many believe that our physical universe is all there is. And yet, a true investigation yields a much, much vaster, quote, bigger picture, close quotes. The bigger picture reality is so much more than the cold basic experience that matter conveys. In fact, the experience of other reality systems can be more rich, more wonderful, more vibrant, and more absolutely astounding than any physical experience available to us. How could this be? Well, when we remember nothing but the physical world in which we're raised, we can't imagine it. We can't imagine how such a thing or an investigation of such a thing could even be pursued. In order to have your present physical experience, you had to accept a sort of amnesia for a while so that you could completely focus on being differentiated as a human. The entire you, your true essence, is so great, so vast, and so connected to everything else that this idea of functioning as a seemingly separate human would be quite impossible if it wasn't for that amnesia. Nevertheless, you are still what you truly are. You are still spirit. You cannot not be what you truly are. And thus, if you truly wish to investigate reality, you will need to be willing to fully look into what you are beyond the human mind. You can choose to spend time with and focus on your awareness itself, because that does always transcend your physical experience. You can do these meditative practices that have you focusing on your awareness rather than what you're aware of. Consciousness is the common denominator for every experience. So if you want to truly explore creation, start by looking at your awareness, at consciousness itself. For indeed, within the realms of creation, there are realities far more immense and far more real than this illusory physical universe that you are so focused on. And your spirit is fundamentally connected to everything in all realities. So you want to really blow your mind? Don't just take drugs. Find a way to do a meditation or a practice that has you focus on awareness itself, not what you're aware of. This reminds me that years ago, as I was listening to some live presentations that Guy Finley was doing, he had people at his intensive center, his retreat center. It's not an intensive center, in Southern Oregon. and he would give a talk, and then he would give these people an exercise to do during the break between talks. And they have a beautiful place out in nature. They've got lots of mature trees, they've got paths to walk, etc. And he would say, now go out and spend some time outside. And here's the exercise. Begin by noticing what you can hear. And just spend a few minutes focused on the sounds that are coming to you that you can hear with your ear. And then the next level is now just focus on your ear and just be aware of this hunk of physical energy that receives signals from the outside world. So focus on the physical properties of the ear and the sensations of the ear. And then the third level is focus on your consciousness being aware of the sound coming in as it's received by the physical ear. Focus on your awareness, your ability to be aware. And then he says, take a moment and look around you and just see what you can see through your eyes. And then shift the focus of your awareness to the physical energy property we call an eye, with an eyelid over it that can blink, with a focusing agent, a lens in it that can focus up close and farther away. Just focus on the physical aspect of the eye. And then the next level is focus on your awareness of what it is that is doing the seeing. So first you're aware of what you see, and then you're aware of the antenna called the eye that's doing the receiving of that information, and then you're aware of yourself becoming aware of your eye. This is exactly what Christian Sundberg is offering in this. You can choose to spend time with and focus on your awareness itself. Not just what you're aware of, but your ability to be aware, your consciousness itself. That's how you start to get an inkling of how vast creation is and how vast and expansive you truly are. So, that's all I'm going to read for today. That is in this compilation of essays under the heading of The Answer is Not in the Intellect. That's the fifth of 9 essays. And when we come back on Monday, we'll probably pick that up unless people have comments or questions, and we'll continue reading. And as always, we're extending the invitation. Let us know how this is landing for you, if it's making sense, if you have comments or questions, and we'll just keep going, trying to help ourselves, and therefore everybody who connects with us, have a different experience of life. Hopefully one that's more loving, one that's more expansive, one that's more rewarding. And we do that in large part by just becoming more aware of how we're creating everything that is less than all of that. So, I'll just remind us all that I'll close this out now and close the app down, give Michael and Jeanie a few minutes to start up again. Please open your Needle app for them if you have it in your mind to stick around for that. I'll remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessings.